are forced to take additional actions in order to improve the fruit setting. One of the main actions farmers are used to do to improve the fruit setting of the tomato plant is to induce the parthenocarpy. Of course, the parthenocarpy exists naturally, and the tomato fruit can set parthenocarpic fruits under normal conditions and under natural conditions, but however in a very low frequency. But there are opportunities to induce parthenocarpy artificially, and this is mostly done through the use of synthetic auxins, like for example 4-chlorphenoxyacetic acid, and by which you can with which you can spray the non-open flowers, the buds, the flower buds, at the moment they are just opening up, and then we will not have the pollination, but you will have only vegetative growth of the ovary, and then you will have a parthenocarpic fruit. A parthenocarpic fruit is somehow different from a naturally pollinated or naturally setted fruit, and you can see it from the picture here. It is with angles. From the outside shape you can see that it is with angles because, as I showed later on, there is hollowness inside the fruit, and because of the air pressure you have, which is pushing the hollowness sides, you have this kind of angled fruits. In general, the size of fruits of the parthenocarpic fruits is larger than of the naturally pollinated fruit, and there is a very specific distinguishing features to define that we have parthenocarpic artificially induced parthenocarpic fruit or a naturally setted fruit, and this is the presence of the flower. As I explained before, in naturally pollinated fruit, the flower stays on the top of the fruit, but in case of an induced parthenocarpic fruit, the flower stays to the end of the fruit, to the point the fruit is linked with its stem, and it stands here until the fruit is fully ripened or fully matured, and this is a piece of flower which is very hygroscopic. It can absorb a lot of water, and in many cases can be the start of some fungal diseases, like for example botrytis. In addition to synthetic auxins to induce the parthenocarpy, can also be used synthetic gibberellins or combined combinations of synthetic auxins and gibberellins. Of course, this is an intervention which might have some consequences, and there are also some concerns of the consumers regarding the safety of using these products in fruit setting. Very commonly we might find disformations or malformations of the tomato fruits, which are set through the application of these artificial hormones, like you see here in these pictures here. But the most common malformation or disorder is of course the hollowness inside the fruit, and you can see it here that we do not have seeds, and because of that also the placenta is not developed in these cavities of the fruit, and they remain empty. This is the reason why by pushing, under the pressure of air, these parts become a little bit flattened, and the entire fruit takes some angles on the external shape. Most importantly, since we do not have the presence of the seeds here, and therefore will not have the compounds which are synthesized by the seeds, will not have full aromas of tomato plant. And this is for sure, this is happen not only in tomato. It is a phenomenon which happens also with other fruits which could have pollinated or parthenocarpic fruits at the same tree. Like, for example, I can tell you the example of the persimmon, which the same tree might have seeded fruits and seedless fruits, and they differentiate by the content of the sugar and the texture of the fruit. Similar consequences will have also with parthenocarpic fruits of tomato plant. However, we should need to clarify that apart from these phenomena which are negatively affecting the quality of a tomato plant, there is not any risk for the users, for the consumers, and for the environment due to the use of 4-chlorpheniceacetic acid for tomato pollination. And with the exception of ocular irritation, it has been proved that it is very low acute toxicities to human or to environment. But more about this risk assessment, you can consult the link here, which is the link of Environmental Protection Agency of the United States of America. Well, however, this is not the best way and the most friendly, environmentally friendly alternative to improve the fruit setting. And on the recent years, better alternatives have been discovered and are massively used or extensively used. And this can be better done. The fruit setting can be improved by using a special bee, the so-called bumblebee. This is the bumblebee, and you can find it naturally in many countries. Well, we know that the tomato plant have a lot of solanins, and because of that it is bitter, and due to the bitterness there are not many insects which can visit the tomato flowers, and this is a problem. This makes a specific problem for the natural pollination of tomato flowers. And in addition, the tomato pollen grains are sticky and heavy, and they cannot easily removed by the air movements. And all about this, the stigma is hidden inside the tube of the pollen, or inside the pollen tubes, and so it cannot fall by air movements into the female organs. But fortunately, this insect can still visit, can feed itself in a tomato flower, and thus they are inserted into in a greenhouse in some small carton boxes with some 100 individuals of bumblebees inside, and then they, by visiting the tomato flowers, as you see here, shaking the flower and helping to have a good pollination percentage, even under adverse weather conditions or microclimate condition into a greenhouse. And you can easily identify that the tomato flower is visited by bumblebee or not, because they are making sticks into the pollen tubes, and so it is easily identifiable. And of course, we should be aware about the effects of different methods we can use to improve the fruit setting. And this is a table taken by the literature, which shows the effects of 4 different methods to the average yield, the average fruit weight, the average fruit size, number of seeds per fruit, and number of flowers have setting fruit expressed in percentage. And you can see that in the control variant we have very low average yield per plant, nearly to 3 kilograms per plant, and this is a consequence of a lower fruit weight, only 17 grams per fruit, and a very low percentage. Notice this, it's only 65% of the flowers have setted fruit. And the situation becomes better through the use of vibration, and the number of flowers setting fruit is increased to 76%. But by the use of artificial hormones, it's much higher, 96%, 97%, and even higher by the use of the bumblebee. Almost 100% of the flowers have set fruits. But more importantly, by the use of bumblebees, we have a higher fruit weight, and both in general they have yield a higher yield per plant, up to 5 kilograms per plant, compared with only 2.8 kilograms per plant in case of the control. Comparable to the use of artificial hormones, you can see that we have a slightly smaller fruit size in case of bumblebee use, but the number of seeds per fruit is much higher. And in general, in total, by the use of bumblebee, we should have a higher yield. We should expect a higher yield and better quality, the best quality of fruits indeed, well shaped and uniform, and full of seeds, and fleshy and tasty, and full of aromas. Therefore, this is the recommended practice to improve fruit setting under greenhouse production conditions. Well, the next component of defining the expected fruit production, yield production, by the plant is of course the size of the fruit. We discussed so far about the number of fruits per plant, and we discussed the methods how to increase the number of fruits per plant, and now we should talk about what are the factors which affect the fruit growth, the size, and how we can enhance the ripening process in tomato growth. This is graphically the stages of fruit development. This is the first stage of the fertilization of fruit setting, and then we have a first stage of fruit growth, which lasts up to 2 weeks, 14 days, and this is characterized by a very low growth rate of the fruit. And in this case, the cells are also small and very compacted, and we have only small increase in size and in the volume of the fruits. But later on, after this first 2 weeks, the fruits enter into a new stage of growth, which lasts for 6 to 7 weeks, and during this stage the fruits start to grow very fast. And the growth in this case is not only because of the cell division and increase the number of cells per fruit, but also because of the increased size of individual cells, and they also become less compacted, and some intercellular spaces are being developed in a fruit. But for a long period the fruit remain green, and it is not edible, and it does not have the right consistency to be edible. But by the end of this period, when the fruit has almost reached its maximum size, there's some changes happening then, some physiological and biochemical changes starting, and as a consequence, the fruit is changing the color from green to red, and it has become some sugars, some combined sugars are transformed into simple sugars. The fruits become eatable and it becomes softer and also more sweety and more tasty. Of course, there is a number of factors which are affecting the growth rate and also the ripening rate, and we will talk about this in details in the next slide. The development of a tomato fruit is going in several stages, as you can see it from this picture here, and until the third stage, the fruit is fully green, and even it can produce some carbohydrates, some photosynthesis. It is able to make photosynthesis since it contains chlorophylls. But then the next stage is the moment of starting the transformations of the chlorophyll pigments into lycopene and prolycopene, and the fruits start to become red. It's important to note that the fruits which already has reached this stage of development can continue to be fully ripening, even if we detach them from the plants. And this is a practice often has been done for different purposes. However, we should be aware for the fact that fruit is continuously taking nutrients, organic compounds, and from the mother plant until its final ripening. So longer the fruit, it really can be ripening even by detaching by the plant, but longer a fruit stands on its mother plant, more healthy and more nutritional it would be. Anyway, these processes are followed by some physiological changes and so in the plant. And the most significant physiological process happening in the plant is the increased rate of carbon dioxide release and the increased rate of the ethylene production by the plant. Since the carbon dioxide is released by the plant is significantly increased, it means that the respiration intensity of the plant is also increasing very fast. And I need to clarify that there are indeed two different categories of plants called climacteric and non-climacteric. The first group, the climacteric plants, have a constant level of ethylene production during the ripening process, and the other group, known as non-climacteric, are characterized by a quick increase of the ethylene production during the ripening process. So they are characterized by quick increase of the carbon dioxide production as the respiration intensity, and also by quick increase of ethylene production rate with several times. And tomato belongs to this group, and you can see it from this graph here that the maximum of the ethylene production and the carbon dioxide production is reached at the fifth and the sixth stage of plant ripening, which are exactly these two stages here when the fruit is pink and light red. So this is the reason why people were thinking that they might probably enhance the fruit ripening by artificially adding the by artificially increasing the ethylene concentration in the environment when these non-climateric fruits are saved or after harvesting. And indeed, by artificially adding ethylene, we could enhance, we could make the ripening of tomato plant than under the natural conditions. However, we should be aware for the fact that the ethylene will have some effects on the color, on the texture, and nutritional quality and aroma, and mostly they are negative effects on this quality characteristic of tomato fruit. And yeah, we should expect that will not have the right quality, the best quality of fruit, if it is if its earliness is or early ripening is promoted through the use of the ethylene. And this is indeed how the ethylene affects on fruit maturity. And you have here two different lines. Here is the content of the chlorophyll in fruit, and under controlled conditions you can see it here, and then you can see that how parallel with the decrease of the chlorophyll content we have an increased, a quick increase of the lycopene production, even naturally, and this is with uninterrupted lines. And the other case, when we have the use of the artificial ethylene, then you can see that the rate of chlorophyll transformation into into lycopene and prolycopene is significantly increased, and because of that, of course, we'll have fruits which ripen earlier than under natural conditions. But sometimes the farmers are used to do this not under controlled conditions and closed rooms with a proper temperature and uniform ethylene concentration, like it's been doing for fruits such as bananas, kiwis, mangoes and other things, but on the greenhouse, on the plant. And then we should expect that the effects would not be always good, and they have some effects. Of course, they have some effects on the quality of fruit, and especially on the color of fruit. Normally or mostly we have tomato fruits which are red on the surface, but not on the internal part of the fruit, and therefore the qualities and the taste is not good. And the use of the ethylene, of this practice of enhancing fruit ripening, is also a concern for the consumers, and very often it is believing that it can be dangerous and risky for the health of the humans, or it is dangerous for the environment. Indeed, in the commercial production, the product which is mostly used is ethafone, or otherwise 2-chloroethylphosphonic acid, and this is its formula, and by which when you apply it in an environment, ethylene is being released, and as you can see from this picture here, it is a gas. Ethylene is indeed a hormone, a natural plant hormone, and the plants generate it naturally, and it is the only hormone which is a gas. However, there's been reports that it is a non-toxic product, and its use is approved under specific conditions as a plant growth regulator, and thus mostly as a fruit ripening regulator. And more about the use of and the impacts of the ethylene on the human and human health and environment you can find in these links here, which also is the link which will address you to the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States of America. Still, it is not advisable that to use ethylene in the plants into a greenhouse, because it has some negative effects on the plant's life, and it negatively affects the length of life of the leaves. And once you use or apply ethylene to a plant, you will notice immediately the chlorosis and quick senescence of leaves, and in general the plant of life will be, and especially the productive life of length life of the plant will be significantly reduced, and therefore it is not recommended to be produced into a greenhouse under normal conditions, since once again, even it's been used, it will damage the crop, will lower the yield, but it should not expect it to be, at least not so far, proved to have any negative effect on the human health.